someone who likes a really graphical kind of look on many things, which is one of the reasons why my favorite flower actually is a Gerber daisy, because they almost look like cartoon daisies, don't they? I have managed to design something that kind of has that similar effect. It's a flower, but it's a very graphical kind of flower, and so it's just very simple but elegant. And I'm really, really loving this particular project. You're probably going to see me wearing this a lot if you happen to see me at a bead show or if I'm in your area teaching at a bead shop or something, because I really, really, really like this. Let me show you what I've designed here. This is called the Pretty Posies. I was calling it the Pretty Posies bracelet because obviously this is a bracelet, but look, you can also take the same little element and turn it into earrings. You could certainly turn it into a necklace. I'm going to show you how you can, connect them all in a straight line, but any one of these little seed beads along here is a potential connector point. So if you wanted to, you could connect, say, a daisy over here and one over here. You'd have a double wide kind of thing going on. So that's going to be a design option for you, is how you connect these together. And in here, in the earrings, you'll notice that I left the center with nothing else in it. I just left it open. I just thought that that looked nice and light and area for an earring. Here, I inserted a 4mm Swarovski pearl in the center. You could also use a 4mm round Swarovski crystal if you wanted to make it a little more blingy instead of a pearlized version. You could use a bicone to put in the center, but here's the thing. When you go to add a round bead in the center, it doesn't matter which of these SuperDuos it's attached to, because it's round. But if you do something like a bicone that has an actual directionality to it, you'd have to make sure that every time you attached it in the same, off the same two SuperDuos, so that they would all be oriented the same way. So just as an FYI, if you choose to do something other than a round bead for the center. Now the 4mm sits inside the hole here. It doesn't actually, if you look, you can actually see a little bit of daylight between the center of the SuperDuos and the pearl. Here is what I consider the optimal. These are the 4mm pearls in the blue version. Here I used a 5mm Swarovski pearl, and that fills that hole completely. It also allows this, when you tighten up around the outside edge, you'll notice that this kind of cups a little bit. The flower doesn't sit completely flat where it does here. It has just a little bit of a cupping, which I actually kind of like. I just think it's a nice little feature. So the problem is those 5mm pearls are a little harder to get your hands on. Now I do have them in my store at JillWisemanDesigns.com, so I do have 5mm pearls there. But if locally, if all you can get is a 4mm, it works perfectly fine with a 4mm too. It just doesn't do that slight upward bump when you're using it. So here's how we're going to make this. Let me turn my board here. All right, so here I am with my beads. You'll need a stopper bead. So I like to pick something that's completely different from my project. You're going to need SuperDuos. Twins would work for this also. You're going to need some size 11 seed beads. And then you'll need either those 4 or 5mm Swarovski pearls. You're going to start out by attaching your stopper bead so that your beads don't fall off the thread. And we just bring that down so that you've got a tail left to weave back in later. All right, so there's my stopper bead. You're going to start out by picking up 10 of these SuperDuos. And what you want to do is, as you're picking them up, I kind of look at the second hole to make sure that that second hole is not blocked up as I'm picking them up. You can either do this in advance or do it one at a time as you're picking them up. But what's going to happen is eventually I'm going to come to one where that second hole is blocked up. Let's see, that's 4. And this is 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, and 10. And I got lucky on those, no blocked holes. If you do run into a blocked hole frequently, it's just a temporary block, and you can take your needle and just kind of poke it with a lot of force, making sure that you don't have your finger over here to poke it into. Have done that before too. But you can poke it through here and poke out the blockage, but you can't do that on everything. So that's why it's good to look before you get too far into your project so that you don't have to rip back to fix a bad bead. So here I am, I've got my 10 SuperDuos. I'm going to go back through all of them again to turn it into a circle, and I'm only going through the side where I've already got the thread going through here. So I want to make sure that it's the side where the thread is. There we go. And you can see that they kind of want to wiggle around on you a little bit. Don't worry about it. We're going to force them to be exactly the way we want them here in a minute. All right, we're going to keep going around. So the side of the SuperDuo where we go through without adding any additional beads is the center of the hole of our flower. All right, and I've got one more to go through here. And then I'm going to go one more past my tail so that it turns into a nice, there we go, a nice round piece. At this point, everything's secure. You can actually get rid of that stopper bead if that gets in your way. Our next step is going to be to jump out to the outside hole here so that we can add a seed bead in between each one of these outside holes. And there's no way around it. You're just, wherever your thread's coming out, you're just going to pop through the second hole up at the top of that same SuperDuo. And if you look, your thread is going to show right here on that inside edge. But the thing is, once you've finished beading this, it's never going to show in actually your project. So don't worry about that thread showing in between these two holes. Trust me, you're never going to see it. Okay, so then all we're doing here along this outside edge is we're adding a single size 11 seed bead all the way around. Oh, and look, I didn't look closely enough. I've got one that's got a blocked hole. Let's see if I can poke it out. Nope, I cannot poke that out. Okay. So at this point, what I'm going to have to do is so this is a good lesson. I didn't look closely enough. I'm going to have to pull this all apart, get rid of that SuperDuo, and add and redo a SuperDuo. So we'll take just a pause here for me to do that and come right back. Okay, so now we're back. I have fixed, I've gotten rid of the naughty SuperDuo with the blocked up hole, and I'm back out to that outside bead again so that I'm ready to now add a size 11 seed bead in between each one of these outside holes. So we're just going to pick up an 11 and pass through the next hole. And we're doing that all the way around. You're really going to start feeling it tighten up a little bit on you. If you are a loose beader, which is I actually am a fairly loose beader, and so sometimes I have trouble holding tension into my piece. And so what I like to do after I've gone around these once is I go through them all a second time and just go straight around the circle to reinforce it, and that sucks up any of the leftover thread that might be showing, and it just kind of solidifies the piece. So those of you who have a tight tension to begin with probably don't have to worry about that. But those of you who might have a little bit more of a loose tension, I think that is a good policy to go through around this outside edge, and if necessary, the inside edge too, to tighten it all up. Okay, so here I've gone around, and there is our first little adorable flower. Now, it's up to you whether you want to go around and reinforce that outside edge, and if I were doing this for myself at home, I would do that, but I won't make you suffer through watching me do that. Just know that I do think that that's a good policy. Now what we want to do is weave back down to the bottom hole of the SuperDuo so that we can add the center bead if you choose to. Like I said, in the earrings I didn't add a center bead, but here I want to go ahead and show you how to add that center bead. So I'm just going to, wherever my thread is coming out here, I'm just going to use that same SuperDuo, and I'm going to pop through now that inside center hole. Depending on how tight your tension is, that may be a little bit difficult to get in there. Because I have, like I said, because I have a fairly loose tension, it wasn't too bad for me. You can see where I've got some thread showing right here. So what I like to do for in the inside center here is attach my pearl on the inside here first, and then after I've attached that pearl, then I go back and reinforce that center ring again, and that will suck up any additional thread. But I'd wait till after I've added the pearl, because that way I can manipulate this and get into those holes a little bit more easily. So here I'm going to use the 4mm pearl. Does not matter which SuperDuo I'm coming out because I'm using a round bead. And what I'm going to do is look for the SuperDuo that's directly opposite it. So there's a couple ways you can do this. You can eyeball it. I'm just kind of using my thread here to kind of create a straight line. And so this is the SuperDuo that's directly opposite it. If you want to count, if you don't trust yourself, you're going to have 4 SuperDuos in between the two that you're going to be going through. So you'll have 4 on this side and you'll have 4 on this side. And it's the number 5 at the top and bottom that you are actually going to pass through. Sometimes it makes a difference whether you attach a bead in the center here like in a figure 8, or if you just go in a circle through it. And in this particular case, it does not matter. So I just went through the SuperDuo on the opposite side, coming back through the pearl again. There we go. And now I can pop through that same SuperDuo that I started out in. Like I said, because I didn't tighten it, I can get in there pretty easily. All right, so now that is in the center. And so my last step here would be to pass through all of these center holes here to tighten that up. Like I said, because I don't want to make you guys sit here and watch me do that, I'll forego that, but I do suggest that that's a good step if you still have this pretty loose. So now what we have to do to learn how to do the connector is we need to get back to that outside edge again. So same thing, wherever I'm coming out of a SuperDuo on the inside edge, I'm just going to pass through the outside edge hole, like so. And then I'm going to pass through the nearest size 11 seed bead. We'll create our little connector right here. And what I've done for a connector is a simple right angle weave unit. So a right angle weave unit is 4 beads, and it looks like a little square. So here's the one that we're coming out of is 1. Here's our other 3 that we're going to attach. We're passing through the bead that our thread was originally coming out of. Okay, so there's our little pretty right angle weave unit, 4 beads. Look. And what we want to do is get to the outside edge so that we can start creating the next flower. So that just means we're going to now pass forward through 2 beads. And if you need to flip this around to get the angle on it, whether you're a righty or a lefty, it doesn't matter. Go ahead and flip it around. Just remember that you're getting to that outside tip seed bead. So now here I am on the tip. And this seed bead right here will be just like this flower, part of this flower for the next flower, which means we're actually going to attach this next flower. The first one we attached using all the inside edge, but going forward, we're going to start out on that outside edge. So what we're going to do is we pick up our 10 SuperDuos, is we're going to be picking up a seed bead in between each one of them. So here we go. 1 SuperDuo and a seed bead, and 2 SuperDuos and a seed bead, and I'm checking carefully to make sure the holes are not blocked. 3 SuperDuos and a seed bead, 4 SuperDuos and a seed bead, 5 and a seed bead, 6 and a seed bead, 7 and a seed bead, 8, 9, and 10. Now, after you've picked up your 10th SuperDuo, you do not have to add an additional seed bead because guess what? There it is right there. All right, so then we're just going to pass back through the seed bead that your thread was coming out of. And there's our outside edge. But notice how these SuperDuos kind of want to lay like a sun. They want to lay on the outside. It's okay, we're going to force them. What I'm going to do is I'm going to pass forward by a couple of beads. Just keep going around the circle. You'll catch that the SuperDuo and the seed bead. And you want to end by coming out of a SuperDuo. Does not matter. I usually pass 3 or 4. It's just I like to get away from this intersection right here. I find it easier to start forcing these all to sit inward if I'm away from that intersection. So it's just, trust me on that one. And then here I am coming out of the SuperDuo and the center hole, the outside hole, and I want to get to the other hole, so I'm just going to pop right back through the next hole. You'll notice that it has me changing direction, which is fine. Doesn't matter which direction you go as you're creating this. You can flip back and forth. And now what I'm going to do is I'm going to go catch all of the holes along these SuperDuos that I don't already have thread through. And I'm not adding any seed beads. So we're just popping right along. Okay. Going, catching all the little tips. So this is a little fumbly, but remember, it's not a race. Doesn't matter how long it takes. See here, like that, and there's my last 2. My tail's getting in the way, and then I keep going past where I started by 1 or 2 just to tighten it up. And then when I pull, I kind of usually have to take my finger and encourage everything to sit on in, wiggle it a little bit so that they all move to the center here. There we go. So there is a little bit of finesse in that whole wiggle. And when I'm tightening inward, so into the center, as opposed to if I were tightening out this way, I'd be pulling it in that direction. And so what I want to do is pull it towards the center there. So there I am, ready to add another center bead, which would be my pearl. Add the pearl, reinforce the inside edge, reinforce the outside edge. Then I would get to the seed bead opposite where that intersection was for my next connection. And so I would just, here's where this connection was. I want to just, if I want it to go in a straight line, I want to connect to the seed bead directly opposite, and then I'd create the next connector. But like I said, this is a design element. You might want to create your flowers in a zigzag. So maybe you want to do that one and then maybe connect over here to this one, and you can make this next flower come this way, and then the next flower come this way. So these are all options for you as you go along. The flowers are so easy, aren't they? You're going to be addicted to making these little flowers. When we come back, I'm going to talk about sizing and about your clasp. Are you totally addicted to making these flowers yet? Are you not seeing like a million billion color combinations that you want to play with? Because I know I do. Okay, so let's talk about sizing for a second. Sizing is going to depend, of course, on what kind of clasp you're using. I like to use toggle clasps on mine. Toggle clasp for this, something that's in scale with this kind of piece, is generally about going to add about 1 inch of extra space, and it's somewhere between 3/4 of an inch and 1 inch. Let me show you exactly how these flowers measure out. Each one of the flowers themselves is 5/8 of an inch. But by the time you take into account the little connectors between it, one connector plus a flower is 3/4 of an inch. So that's how I worked out how many of these flowers I needed for my particular bracelet. Let me try this on for you guys. I worked it so that basically it looked like one more flower would connect everything together. So, and then my clasp was almost the exact same size of the flower. So adding the clasp was the perfect amount that I needed to finish this off. And adding the clasp on this was really, really simple because basically what I just did is use that same connector bead on the outside edge here, and I just created a loop of seed beads around the hole in my toggle clasp. And so in this case, you might have to experiment with how many beads you're going to use for your loop. In my case, I had to add, let's see here, 6. So I added 3 on one side attached to the toggle and then 3 on the other side. On the toggle bar end, I made that a little bit longer when I did this loop because I wanted this to have enough room to come up through the hole in the round part of the clasp and attach. Sometimes you can make this a little too short and you have trouble getting that up in there. So on this end, I actually attached, let's see here, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 seed beads, attach the clasp, and then another 5 seed beads coming back the other direction. Reinforce that at least 2 more times because my rule of thumb is I want 3 passes of thread coming through there. When you go to end off your thread in any one of these flowers, you can use half hitch knots to attach, to end off those threads. You also could just weave around in the beads, but this is a perfect one to just kind of catch the thread in between a seed bead and a SuperDuo here, and you'll be able to do a nice little half hitch knot. I usually do 2 or 3 half hitch knots and move away from the last knot before I cut my thread off. When I did the attachment to the ear wire, I did the exact same thing. I just came off that outside seed bead here in the flower itself. I picked up 2 seed beads, went through the hole in my earring wire, picked up 2 seed beads, and then reinforced that area a couple times to make that a nice, strong connection. So it's really just that easy, and I can't wait to see what you guys come up with. I just know that we're going to have rainbow bracelets, and we're going to have wedding bracelets, and we're going to have earrings and necklaces, and oh my gosh. As a matter of fact, I want to be done filming so I can go back and make some more of these. Be sure and check out the website at jillwisemandesigns.com. I will have a written PDF, so for those of you who want the PDF, the free PDF download that goes with this, that will be available there, and there will be kits available for sale too that have all of the various beads that you need. So check that out and have a good time and happy beading.